Authorities say a mother of three was killed by her estranged husband after she reportedly warned law enforcement about him in the past. We break down what to make of this claim with retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, we're going to go over to Texas, where 35-year-old Nityadevi Ramroop was shot to death allegedly by her husband, her estranged husband, Bisham Ramroop. And she was killed coming home from work right outside of a home where she was apparently hiding away from Bisham, and their kids were inside the home when their mother was killed. Yeah, what makes the death of this mother of three especially chilling is that according to her lawyer, Uchi Ohaya, Nityadevi notified authorities multiple times about how dangerous her husband was, and nothing seemed to happen. Yeah, Ohaya claims that Bisham abused Nityadevi, stalked her, vandalized her car, and with issues of property and custody between the two of them, it seems this situation was particularly volatile. In fact, she was killed days before their divorce was to be finalized. This again, according to her attorney. As for Bisham, he went into the house after shooting his wife, stabbed his wife's sister, who's expected to survive, thankfully, and then ended up killing himself. There are a lot of troubling layers here in this case, so I want to bring in right now retired FBI agent and current law and justice contributor at News Nation, Jennifer Coffindaffer. Jennifer, thanks so much for coming back here on Sidebar. Again, I wish it was under better circumstances. I wanted to lay out some of these prior incidents that, according to Nityadevi's lawyer, where Nityadevi reported and there were no charges filed. So I want to get your perspective. I'm going to start off with this one. And apparently this was over two jurisdictions, two separate places. So at one point, my understanding is that Nityadevi and Bisham had separated. He allegedly stalks her. He follows her to a friend's house. Police come and they don't arrest him, saying that no crime was committed. Now, if that's true, this is again, according to Nityadevi's lawyer, why would that be that there was no arrest or charges filed?
Well, Jesse, whenever you're in law enforcement, the number one thing you need to understand are the statutes that you're actually investigating. So in this case, the statute was 42072 of the Texas law, which states that you cannot stop. What does that mean? Behavior that would be repetitious and consistent with causing a reasonable person harm. In this case, this woman definitely felt harm. She notified authorities, and under that same statute, it actually lays out some of the particular things you can do to stalk somebody, such as following them, such as going to where they are actually located and confronting them, such as damaging their property. All these things constitute stalking. So it would seem that the investigators looking into this didn't have a clear understanding or ignored that statute.
It's troubling because I'm going to give everybody another example. So there was another time where Nityadevi goes out for the night and her estranged husband allegedly again follows her, but actually ends up pushing her, tries to drag her out of a bar, and then one of her friend's husbands intervenes. Then Bisham goes outside, vandalizes Nityadevi's car. The Fort Bend Sheriff's Office didn't move forward with charges, even though there is apparently footage of this alleged vandalizing. This is a more extreme example than the one I just mentioned. How is it possible that he wasn't brought up on charges there?
Well, again, now you have not only stalking, but now you've crossed the line into assault, and I would argue into a battery, which is actually a personal physical affront that was on purpose. He pushed her in this bar. He attempted to drag her out, according to the reporting. So how in the world couldn't you charge the battery if you didn't charge stalking? I would argue that they should have charged both, and it seems to me they dropped the ball.
Well, I guess the question is, in your experience in these kinds of domestic violence situations, is it common for police to not make an automatic arrest? Do they believe one person's side over the other, one partner's side over the other, one spouse's side over the other? Is this common? Because when we're looking at this now, 360, we see a woman, mother of three, brutally killed, seemingly by her estranged husband. And if there were warning signs, could it have been prevented? Well, you tell me, is it common that sometimes police wouldn't interfere or wouldn't do something more than they did here?
Well, Well, I would say it does happen, but it shouldn't happen, Jesse. In other words, when it does happen, it's not proper. They're not following the law. We actually saw this, right, in the Gabby Petito, Brian Laundrie case, where those individual officers even called a supervisor because they didn't clearly understand the statute. Did these officers do any of that? Did they call the DA? Did they call their supervisor? Did they actually look at the statute? I can tell you, I carried my CFR book in my car. So I would be very clear as to if somebody committed a crime, a federal crime right in front of me, and I need to check some of those components. So I think they dropped the ball, Jesse. I just don't find any excuse here.
Well, could it be that they didn't believe her side of the story or friend's side of the story? I mean, is it tough to show that someone was stalking someone? Maybe he was in the area. I mean, I'm trying to rationalize what would be the situation where the charges weren't filed or he wasn't arrested. It seems to me it had to be a difference of opinion as to what happened, right?
You know, I could see your argument, but certainly not in the bar situation. You had
Right.
a person that had to actually intervene and, protect her. There would have been bar patrons that would have seen this assault occur.
And the
real
footage and the
reason
footage of the vandalizing of the car.
Yeah, there's just too much information here that doesn't support a stalking charge and a battery charge, particularly in that second instance. And the
Hmm.
stalking really could have been laid out historically from all these instances lined up where she was followed, harassed,
Right.
telephonically communicated with.
Let me give another example. This was back in June. Nityadevi calls the Harris County Sheriff's Office and she says that Beesham was stalking her. And then she's told, contact an attorney. What do you think?
I think that was a very poor decision to be made on behalf of whoever received that telephone call. She did the exact right thing. An officer should have been dispatched out there. There should be reports on all of these instances that are chronicled with the Harris County Police Department and the Fort Bend Police Department, respectively. It's just wrong what occurred here at every step.
Have you ever heard law enforcement saying, listen, you should contact an attorney if you're having a problem, not we'll take it in our own hands? I mean, is that a common phrase?
No, it's not a common phrase. And having worked with the locals for 15 years on task forces where I was embedded with them, this just doesn't happen, Jesse. It doesn't happen when regulations are being followed, rules are being followed, and people aren't stepping outside of their bounds and making wholesale decisions that, in this case, possibly could have cost her life.
Again, my understanding is that there's been different media outlets who have reached out to the sheriff's office to get more information. I think they've been kind of limited in what they've been saying in response, which I can't say I'm that surprised about, Jennifer, right? Do you think they're doing an internal accounting of what might have happened here?
Certainly so. They're going to go back and they're going to look at exactly what was said. There should have been body worn cameras. So this isn't going to be some mystery unless they turn those off. In addition, they should have had police reports that would have filed that would have matched up to each of these complaints. So it doesn't make any sense that this couldn't have been followed. Those officers couldn't have been interviewed. And I think that's what's going on now, Jesse. They're going to have some accountability in this matter.
Let me also talk about what happened during their marriage. Again, this is according to Nityadevi's, seems to be close, those who were close in her life, but also her attorney, that Nityadevi had alleged that her husband had abused her and threatened her during the course of their marriage. They were married for 18 years. And then People magazine reported that there was one time where he was playing around with knives in front of her and pushed her down in front of the children. My understanding is the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services was contacted, but as you and I both know, it seems like nothing came from that. If that's true, what do you make of that?
Again, the ball has been dropped over and over and over again in
But
this instance.
But
And
is
she
it
was a
different if it's not
victim.
from law enforcement and it's to the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services? I mean, don't they have more latitude than maybe law enforcement?
Well, really, you work hand in hand with them in these
Hmm.
types of situations. I do find it odd that law enforcement wasn't also contacted. I don't understand why just family services was contacted. It seems maybe something's really missing on that part of it. But in either event, if it was only family services contacted, they should have contacted law enforcement. We
Right.
work hand in hand with those authorities.
I'm sure we'll get more information, but another piece that's kind of equally disturbing is that there was an order of protection that was granted a few weeks ago. Nityadevi's attorney said that she feared that this piece of paper wouldn't be enough. Seems like she was right. Do orders of protection really don't grant the kind of protection that people need?
The orders of protection really don't, Jesse, and this is why. It's better than nothing, because then if you look out your window and you see their vehicle, or maybe a neighbor tells you, listen, they've been driving by, then they can be violated for violating that protection order. But to be honest, if they're going to come after you and try to murder you, that sheet of paper is going to do no good in stopping them.
Now, it's not just Bisham. Apparently, Nityadevi's attorney says that his family members were bothering Nityadevi. They were calling her workplace. They were following her. I guess now that we're looking at this and we have two parents who were her dead, one seemingly at the hands of the other, we now have to see what's going to happen with the children. But is anybody going to be facing legal liability here, whether it's potentially family members, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's Child Protective Services? I mean, you tell me, is anything going to be done as a result of this?
Well, under the stalking statute, it states that if you're stalking on behalf of somebody else, you're still stalking. And so they could be charged, those family members, depending on what they were doing, what the facts really would lay out. In terms of the department, I think certainly something could happen, possibly civilly. And then also they could be reprimanded within their department. So I think somebody is going to be paying the piper on this. There's so much that happened, Jesse, in terms of officials, authorities dropping the ball that led to Nityadevi's death. And somebody's going to have to pay that price.
Look, again, if this is all true, I mean, we're hearing one's account of it. It's just hearing this account. It seems so disturbing. It seems so clear that something should have been done and it wasn't. I hope this isn't true, because it seems to me that all of this could have been prevented. And maybe someone did drop the ball. On the other hand, I'm sure there's going to be a response from law enforcement. I imagine there could be a response from Bisham's family as well. This is a case I'd like to continue to follow to see where it happens, because it's really, really particularly sad when you think about the children now who have no parents moving forward. Jennifer Coffindaffer, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesse.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.